How often do you hear a kid say, "It's my right, the right to the freedom of speech"? Well, Bethel versus Fraser was a case that took on that very notion. Just how much freedom does a kid have in the classroom setting or in the school context to say whatever they'd like to say? So, you might quote the First Amendment that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Right from the amendment. So, the year was 1986 in the small town of Tacoma, Washington, and a senior student at Bethel High School named Matthew Fraser gave a speech to a school assembly nominating his classmate for student government. Now, uh, maybe someone who's been there. I know I certainly have myself. As a senior student in high school, you might feel like a wise guy. And his speech was certainly that. As a member of the debate team, he was fairly well spoken, fairly well read, and he had a little fun, maybe a little too much fun, with his speech that contained sexual innuendos and suggestive language. Now, if you're like me, uh, you just want to hear what the speech was. So on this next slide, I'm going to read the speech. Uh, so parental, advised, explicit. Um, it was clearly supposed to be humorous, but here it is. So he gave this following speech at his high school assembly in support of a candidate for student government office. I know a man who is firm. He is firm in his pants, his firm in his shirt. His character is firm, but most of all, his belief in you, the students of Bethel, is firm. Jeff Coleman is a man who takes his point and pounds it in. If necessary, he'll take an issue and nail it to the wall. He doesn't attack things in spurts. He drives hard, pushing and pushing until finally he succeeds. Jeff is a man who will go to the very end, even the climax, for each and every one of you. So vote for Jeff for ASB Vice President. He'll never come between you and the best our high school can be. Okay, so a little out of pocket, you might say. This was the year 1986. And so amidst this assembly he gave the speech he gave of an assembly of 600 students, high school, all various ages, right? Freshman through senior. There were laughs, there were a cacophony of sounds, but there were also many kids with kind of embarrassed red faces, not knowing what was going on, maybe feeling a little uncomfortable. I mean, certainly that was the case. And so the staff of Bethel decided they would suspend him, remove him from the ceremony so he wasn't going to walk up for graduation. And yeah, he faced a 3-day suspension. In response, Fraser, again, a senior student on the debate team, decided he would seek litigation. He wanted to sue Bethel School District for what he said was a breach of his First Amendment right, the freedom of speech. So, this posed a good question. Does the First Amendment prevent public schools from disciplining students for lewd or indecent speech at school. If you'd like, pause the video here and discuss this. Now, here's the Supreme Court decision. The court ruled in a 7-2 in favor of the school district. So essentially, one of the primary arguments on Fraser's side was to quote a previous case, Tinker versus Des Moines. And Tinker versus Des Moines was a legal case in 1969, so about, what is that, about 15 years earlier. And he's quoted them in this case where students wore peace ribbon and bracelet around their arm as a political protest. Um, in the late 60s, it was really popular to protest the Vietnam War. And so he said, see, that was done in schools. Tinker versus Des Moines. The kids were protesting, and that went in favor of the students. The students had the right to do so, that it was non-disruptive political speech. However, the court held that schools may prohibit vulgar and lewd speech, in that the schools have a responsibility to teach students socially appropriate behavior, right? Academics is not the only reason kids go to public school. Another reason is to learn how to get along with each other and respect one another in social settings, um, learn those social skills. Uh, Now, of course, there is context, right? The fact that this was done in front of 600 students, the entire student body, um, made this over the top. I will say I've had like creative writing classes where the teacher has given permission for the students to maybe throw in a swear word or two, but that's in a senior level, so like 17, 18-year-old creative writing course, and it's within a small group of like 20 kids who all understand um, and and know what to expect. Now, um, this was really the key reasoning, is that it does not require, the First Amendment does not require schools to tolerate vulgar or offensive language, and that these public schools may have standards, right? During an assembly like speech. So, what was the impact on education? Well, schools from here on out, 1986 and onward, had a recognized broader authority to regulate student speech. Um, what was okay to say at home may not be okay to say in the school setting. And that's a line that I've definitely dropped while teaching. You know, you're not outside with your friends at a party. This is underneath the school roof. You got you got some expectations here, right? There's other people around. All right. So, yes, so is that vulgar or lewd speech is not protected in school settings, that the school has the almost obligation to have students refrain from using vulgar or lewd speech. It helps define the limits of student free speech, and later cases would use Bethel v. Fraser as a point to make um, in their own in the standings of future cases. So yeah, why it still matters? It continues to guide these school policies on student conduct and speech, what is okay to say in the school setting. It was frequently cited. A future case was like bong hits for Jesus, and Bethel v. Fraser was brought up in that. That the school is a zone that should prevent or withhold vulgarities, what may be considered socially insensitive, things like that in the school setting. And again, when you're a student in a school setting, the school has an educational mission, and so students are expected to follow along with that school mission. And just to close, I thought I'd mention Matthew Fraser. He's still doing well. He was a rascal, but he ended up on the John F. Tinker Foundation. He's a board member there. He currently works with high school students, and he's a debate coach. He has a wife and 2 kids, and he seems to be doing well. So good on you, Matt. Thanks for changing our perspective on student free speech. Thank you.